Alright guys, I want to bring you up to speed here. First thing you gotta remember, A, I'm not a body guy. B, this is a driver, okay? The vehicle was hit, and instead of scrapping the vehicle, we're going to put on a different front clip. That's the extent of it. This is not the kind of vehicle that's ever going to a show. We're not going to have people look at it, okay? I'm not here to impress the women. I've been married 20 years to the same woman. She already knows I suck. Alright, so what I wanted to show you is these welds on the outside here. If you can see, A, you can see I can't weld. B, this sheet metal is so thin that all you can do is tack and tack and tack, just tack weld one next to the other until you get this done. I don't know how long this took, but it took a while. Now, this side here didn't turn out all that good, but you can see you got good penetration. Now, body shop, of course, and I will too, I'm going to grind all this down to where it looks flush. If a guy was patient and he had the time, you can grind and weld and grind and weld and grind and weld until you can make it perfectly smooth where there's absolutely no seam at all. Now this side here you can see came out a lot better. I mean, some of them you can't even hardly see where they came through. So now, before you guys start whining and leaving complaints about or comments about how we got this thing cut off here, here's the frame rail, and I welded it back on. You can tell that's a little heavier material, and it took the weld a little better. Clean the weld up good, put it on here. Now, before you start whining, this sheet metal on here, the only thing this carries is the headlights and the radiator and air conditioning compressor. Or condenser. There's absolutely no structure up here at all. Now this mount right here carries the transmission, which is right there. And I can tell you can lift that transmission with one hand. But I suppose probably there's two mounts that actually carry the weight. This mount here, and there's a mount over here on this side. You can see it back there. Now, this mount on this side carries 70% of the weight of the engine. Okay? This side over here carries not much. There's a mount in the back, and there's a mount here in the front's been removed. So there's 4 mounts total, but these 2 side mounts carry basically the whole weight of the engine transmission. Of that, I don't know how many pounds that thing carries, but it ain't much. Now, one thing I did notice, and I want to point out, this upper frame arm here, put this light down here. This frame here is original. This, of course, is the one I welded on. This one here is damaged a lot worse than what I thought. That was all crinkled up. We saw that in the first video. This thing's all sandwiched up in here. But underneath here, I'm not even going to show you. I'm embarrassed. Underneath here, this frame arm is damaged bad. We shouldn't have saved this at all. We should have cut this out, clear back up into here, and taken this entire frame arm assembly here on out. Because it looks fine from up here on top, but underneath you can see it is not. So I twisted it back into shape as best I could, using bottle jacks and heat and hammers and levers and you name it. We got it bent back into shape, but it should never even been tried to been saved. We should have been cut out. So if I did this again, I would have snatched the whole section out of that little Rabbit convertible and cut this whole section out and start it over. But that might have been too much trouble. It might have been easier to scrap this chassis and go get another one. But these trucks are getting so hard to find, you just can't do it. Alright, so the next thing we got to do is clean up all these welds and then prime them and paint them and try to get enough paint on there to keep them from rusting, but that's not going to work. The other thing I wanted to point out up in here, if you guys ever have to do this, this is a German car. The radiator is a pin mount. It just drops down with a rubber grommet down into this hole. The American ones don't. They have isolators, so I had to weld in some little patch panels here that match the location for the American ones. This is for the air conditioning compressor, air condenser, and this is the radiator. The same thing over here. You got the exact same problem on this side over here. nothing to be done, man. It would have been a lot faster and easier had I thought about it. Of course I didn't. That's how I do stuff. But I should have just saved the radiator and the air conditioning condenser out of the other car, and I could have dropped them right in here without modifications. But that don't work. So there's a couple other things got to be modified in here. But basically from this point on, after we get these welds cleaned up, I have to get this battery tray put back in here. This is where the battery sits, right here. And you can see where I used the spot weld remover. It took those spot welds out, drilled a hole, then routed out the spot welds, and you can see a whole row of them in here. I did, got them all off here. The old battery tray, the good one, is going to go back into here, and then I'll do some rosette welds, weld these into place, and then that'll be done. So from that point on, it's just a matter of reassembly. I don't know which. I've got several sets of fenders, stuff to use. I don't know which ones I want to use. We'll look and see which ones are the best, and we'll get on there. But bear in mind, before you leave nasty comments about me cutting up a rabbit cabriolet, the cabriolet was junk anyway. So I'm reusing these parts to keep this vehicle going longer. Now this vehicle here is not a showpiece. Okay, you can see it's dinged up pretty bad. It's not rusted anywhere, but it's dinged up pretty bad. Poor paint. So it is a driver. It is a pickup truck. We put fuel in the back and we take it down the road. That's what we do. Now I am going to swap these brakes out, put on some big brakes off the 16 valve Scirocco. I got a set of those. I'm not going to change the rears and the discs right now, but I am going to change these. I've got new struts for the front. I could put them in, but while it's up in the air, might as well do some maintenance on it. Alright, I'll give you an update as we get it. The next one, I'll probably have the sheet metal on it, have this battery tray back in, and we'll show you how the rest of this truck goes together. So, you guys are never seen one of these? It's VW diesel pickup truck. Yeah, they really did make them for 3 years. There's 80,000 of them made for this country. I don't know how many's left, but not very many. So, I got 5 of them, so I'm not going to sell mine. Anyway, later.